Welcome to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I am Tammi Mack on Foxsoul. Interracial marriage has been controversial for the entire history of the United States, and it was illegal until 1965. But it is 2022, people. So why is it still controversial? Oh, if you're a Black person who's married to a white person, does it mean that you aren't truly pro-Black? Well, let's get down to business. The business of being Black today is interracial relationships. Please welcome the author of Interracial Marriages Between Black Women and White Men, Cheryl Giudice. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, how are you?
Great. Actress and artist Paisley Paige Gibson is here. Hi, Paisley Paige.
Hi.
Graphic designer and staff writer at the Kansas City Call, Aubrey Hughes, aka Hotep Priestess, is here. Hi,
you guys.
And radio personality and relationship coach, Dewan Brown on deck. Hi, Dewan.
Doing good. How you doing today?
Fine. Let's get down to business, Dewan. I'll kick things off with you. Why should Black people care about interracial relationships?
Because of the history of it, it's one of those things where we're at a point in our history to where we don't seem to be responsible with interracial relationships. And what I mean by responsible, a lot of people in them feel as if their interracial relationships mean something bigger for all of Black people. It seems as if they go around and act as if, okay, I'm married to another person of the opposite sex. What do you mean racism doesn't exist? What do you mean it's all bad? They tend to take on a God complex when it comes to the whole greater society in relationship to their particular relationship. So because of that irresponsible mindset that a lot of us have that are in interracial relationships, it can be a major problem. Like, these are people that feel they can speak for Black people and not just speak for themselves. And we have a history of people like this coming in and undermining Black progress because they think they've arrived. They say things counterproductive to the greater society of Black people in America.
Paisley Paige, why should Black people care about interracial relationships?
I think they should care about interracial relationships because I am a product of an interracial relationship. And I think it's more about sharing each other's ideals and being pro-human than really trying to push a certain agenda or culture. I think what's so important and powerful about relationships is that it melds together people as one, and united we stand and divided we fall. So I think it's important, no matter what skin color you are, to be united.
Cheryl, why should Black people care?
Well, I'm just here a little bit dumbfounded. I'm still trying to process what Dewan has said. In my over 25 years of studying it.
We'll certainly get to what Dewan has said. Absolutely.
Okay. But because I can't relate to that at all from the couples and people that I've interviewed. And also, as of September 2021, 94% of all US adults approve of marriages between white people and Black people. And that's up from 2013, where it was only 87%. So this is definitely a phenomena that is here to stay.
Princess Hotep Priestess.
Yes, I think that it's important because on paper, sure, theoretically, anybody can be two things. Of course, you can be pro-Black and date interracially. However, dating outside of your race and being pro-Black, as I've seen translated into reality, is often an oxymoron. I think people use that proximity to whiteness to get other things. And in that, they kind of internalize an anti-Black mindset.
Excellent. So, Cheryl, I do believe you wanted to respond to Dewan, so let's do it.
Well, okay. I have probably interviewed more than 300 people over the past 25 years. I have never encountered a couple where anybody gave up their being Black or being white in a relationship, nor have I found any couples where they felt that in some way, because they were married outside the race, that their opinion should be something that everybody else should adhere to. If anything, most interracial couples are hypersensitive to nuances of race. And again, I haven't found anyone that thinks that, okay, I married the white woman or the white man. For some reason, I can speak for everybody. So
well, I think and Dewan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but what Dewan is saying is that someone who is Black that is married to a white person takes on an irresponsible behavior because they believe that because they are married to a white person, racism no longer exists.
Definitely not anything that I have come across in the couples that I have interviewed. Not at all.
Well, I came up with that because I've been doing this for about 25 years also. Since I was 14, actually, is when I started working with people. And I have run across this. And as a person who's born and raised here in South Central LA, I'm someone who's been out here in the forefront of the community. I'm someone who started working out of King Drew Medical Center in Watts. And I have my own company now working with families, working with people. I've coached people and families. And this is a behavior that when I'm out there, more so in the community doing my work, these are the people that I come across when I'm out in the community doing my work, more so than I am when I'm in counseling. When people are in counseling, they're one thing. But when they're out there in the community doing work, there's something totally different. And that's what I'm talking about. When you talk about, and you give these, it gives people cover. It gives them plausible deniability. You know, you get someone, they'll get into an interracial relationship and they'll say, hey, how can I be anti-Black? I have a white person. Or how can I be anti this? I'm dating someone of that race. And it's like, okay, yeah, you're dating, but let's just look at your policies, Kamala Harris.
Okay, so we just gonna throw a little shade on the vice president here, Dewan. Yeah. Okay.
I donated to her campaign in 2008. I was on Kamala before she became a national thing. I was a donor to her campaign going back to 2008. So I'm someone who followed her political moves, and I'm all about politics, not about the look.
Priestess, Hotep Priestess, I saw you shaking your head in agreement.
Yes, I definitely do agree. And that's why I was saying that often dating outside of your race and being pro-Black can be an oxymoron, because in my experience, a lot of Black people are white supremacists, and that can show up in many different ways. And what I mean by this is that as we know society to be constructed against Black people, or constructed to our disadvantage, we yet and still internalize these obviously false narratives and hierarchies, and through buying into them, we act on them. We act like the framework from which society is structured is realer than it is, and we perpetuate it. Give me an example. Yeah. So in that, we find advantages in the opposite of proximity to Blackness. So we find advantages in distance from Blackness and proximity to whiteness. For instance, how for some reason we prioritize light-skinned babies, or I've heard a lot of Black people say that if they have a white wife, they could have a more realistic opportunity for like upward mobility in certain settings.
That brings us to something totally totally plausible, because America does look upon light-skinned people with the curly hair, paisley page, in a different way than they do a dark-skinned person or a person of a darker hue with a different texture of hair. So is what Hotep Priestess say, does it have some truth to it? Some truth to it? Paisley Page?
Well, I've kind of experienced a little bit of maybe the opposite, because I've kind of dealt with not really fitting in the Black community and not fitting in the white community either, because I'm not white enough and I'm not Black enough. So I've kind of dealt with something a little bit different and kind of unique to being like a multiracial child and person. And so I don't know. I feel that there's something that you run up against no matter what race you are. And I think that being in the middle kind of, I feel like maybe we get projected on from like each side. And I don't know, it's a tricky
so then Cheryl, that's interesting too, because Cheryl, then it kind of sort of makes what Dewan say true. There's a responsibility there. Perhaps there would not be a disconnection in who you are and your ethnicity and your race if the two didn't mix.
Well, let me just break it down to the basics. If you are a Black woman and you would like to get married and have children, God help you if you put all your eggs in the basket hoping to marry a Black man. Nothing wrong with Black men. There's just not enough of them. By age 16 forward, Black women outnumber Black men. The same thing doesn't happen for whites until age 32. So if you don't mind risking being single, go right ahead. But the numbers do not support a Black woman putting all of her effort into finding a Black Prince Charming, because most likely she's at very high risk of being single. In terms of the color issue, all you need to know is the history of this country. Yes, fair-skinned Black people have had advantages, but they've also had disadvantages, as Paisley Page started to talk about. I too have been in her situation. Again, people, if I had $1 for every time someone said something to me that they would not have said had they known that I was not white, I would be pretty well off. But by the same token, there are people that don't like it that you're fair skinned, and in their view may have greater opportunities. So I know exactly what she's talking about. It goes all the way back to the history of the country, where people that were fair skinned were most likely the offspring of the master of the house, and they enjoyed favor versus the people out in the fields who weren't. So there you go.
Dewan, Cheryl just gave all Black people across the world over the age of 32 the biggest letdown, set down. Let's take a quick break.
Over the age of 16 for Black women.
Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack on Foxsoul. Today, the business of being Black is interracial marriages. Now, before we left, Cheryl left Black women across the world with some horrible news that if we don't find a man by 16 as Black, we ain't gonna find one at all. Dewan, what do you say to that? I mean, can you please give us some leniency here, Dewan, and open up the doors, leave a door open for Black women to be married, and have a family. As Cheryl say, y'all, it ain't enough for y'all to go around.
That's right.
What I'm supposed to do? Who I'm supposed to be with? How I'm supposed to create? I don't get it.
See, if you only look at the numbers, you can be deceived. That's why no one should ever look at only numbers. Numbers tell whatever story the author wants them to tell.
But numbers don't lie. Numbers. Dewan, 1 + 1 will always equal 2.
Thank you.
But you got to realize statistics are always quantified differently than everything else. Statistics is a book called How to Lie with Statistics. And I'm not saying she's lying with statistics. What I'm saying is, if I want to make a point, I can make up a stat to prove any point I want to make. That's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is this: you can be with people right now. What I see in my relationship coaching business is a lot of single Black men that don't really understand how to get with a Black woman, partially because we're the generation that was raised without a father. Not me personally, but a lot of people out there. They don't know what it is. If it was so bad, you wouldn't have so many single Black men out there looking for a Black woman. We have a disconnect in our ability to communicate with one another is one of the major reasons why you see so many single people out there, not because it's not enough. And there's a lot of people who by choice choose to be single also. So I want to make sure I make that part clear. And also, I'm not here to say I'm all the way 100% against interracial marriage. What we're talking about is, can you be pro-Black and interracial? Can you speak for Black people when you're in an interracial marriage? That's the point I'm coming from, because look, I'm a product of this. I know my family history. My family came out here from Middle Essex, England in 1660. And my 14 times great grandmother married the first dark-skinned native Black American she could find. And all throughout my personal family's 300-year history, 350-year history on this land, we have interracial marriages in the 1700s, in the 1800s, in the 1900s. So my family's been doing this. The issue I have is this: when we're talking about the interracial marriage, when we're talking about the light skin, fair skin, whatever term you want to use, those are social consequences. When you're talking about someone Black who's 100% Black that you can't tell, there's no difference, they have monetary consequences. Meaning you can't get the job, you can't get this opportunity. We got to remember Howard University, Fisk University. These are universities founded on the mulatto children of these slave owners for them to have a better academic opportunity than the dark-skinned people who are going to Tuskegee and the rest of those universities. So it's a dangerous line when we conflate social consequences with money in our pockets.
Hotep Priestess, listen, Dewan says, there's a clear difference. It's a clear difference between biracial and blackness. You want to speak to that?
I don't know that there's a clear difference. However, I go solely off of lineage. I mean, I don't necessarily consider people fully Black unless they're, they have two Black parents. If you don't, then you just are what you are. You are what your parents gave you. But I don't think that there is a clear definition between the two, or like between the social implications of being Black and being biracial. And I don't place experience on whether or not I think someone is Black or not. I solely base that off of what your parents gave you. So.
Okay. Paisley Page, I have to talk about this. As Dewan said, and Hotep Priestess said, you're not Black.
I don't think that's true because my genetics say I am partially Black. I'm not only Black, but I am Black. And so to say that I'm not Black means that half of me would not be here. So, and you can't have half a person. So that's just not true, period. Scientifically, it's not true. I am Black. I do identify as Black. I identify as white and Native American because that's who I am. And I think it's a beautiful thing. And I'm glad that my parents did meet each other and weren't worried about skin color because it's a beautiful melding. And I think it also helps show that no matter what your skin color is, you can come together as just a human race. And I think people focus too much on skin color to where they just think that, I don't know how to really explain it, but I think skin color is too much focused on. And I think the person underneath the skin color should be looked at more, like what their ideals are, what their beliefs are. And our skin color shouldn't stop us from talking to each other. And
I think this, you saying that, Paisley Page, is what Black people are offended by, because it's easy for you to say not to look at color than it is for someone who's Black in a visual way to say, let's not look at color, because normally it's not Black folk who looking at color. It is not us that's looking.
Yeah, no, I agree. Color. And what I'm saying is, don't let color stop you. Obviously, we all have eyes. We can all see what different color shades of nude we all are. But I'm saying, don't let that stop you. So whether it's a white person not wanting to talk to a Black person, or Black person not wanting to talk to a white person, I'm saying to break down those walls and not let the color of skin stop us from having conversations, being together, and sharing our experiences and our culture with one another.
So Cheryl, I want to move to this. Jordan Peele is known for creating films that deal with issues surrounding race that many Black people identify with. Are his films any less impactful because he's married to a white woman?
Well, first of all, I have to qualify by saying I haven't seen any of his films, but I don't think that I would judge him one way or another. Again, many Black men are married outside the race. To be precise, 24% of Black men in this country are married outside the race. And I would shudder to think that just because they chose someone that wasn't African American, that their viewpoint or the work they do is diminished in any way.
Okay. Hotep Priestess, does that diminish his films? We love his Black folk love his films.
Yes, we love them. And honestly, I don't think that diminishes his films. I give Jordan Peele a pass. I'm not even gonna lie. I do give him a pass because I also, if I'm not mistaken, I think he is biracial as well. But his films are great. He got to get a pass because they're great.
So Cheryl, what does your research show about white spouses of Black men and women and how conscious they are about racial justice issues?
Well, it goes both ways. First of all, we find white men married to Black women, in particular, if they have sons, they are pretty much hyper aware of what could happen to their sons. And of course, they really want them to be prepared in every way possible for things that could come up in their lives. And as well, you find many Black women married to white men have discovered that their husbands are hypersensitive to any slight or potential nuance in any way diminishing them because they're Black. In fact, is what several Black women said to me, we've lived this all our lives. We've always been Black. And for them, it's new. So oftentimes it's like being in the forest and can't see the trees, something that we've become accustomed to. They're not, and are far more likely to challenge it. And so again, it's been all good. Again, for Black men with white wives, they have a similar experience. The women tend to be very supportive of their husbands and things they're doing. So I'm afraid I've not come across anybody that is where the relationship in any way has been diminished because of being married outside the race.
Yeah. Did you want to speak on that, Paisley Page?
No, I agree. I mean, my dad is African-American and my mom is white, and they both had to go through racism. It was kind of interesting because even my mom having a white skin color, but when they found out that my mom was married to somebody Black, there would be an issue. And it happened time and time again to where my dad couldn't even get a job because he was Black, and they would hear his voice on the phone, and all of a sudden the interview would not be a thing. And my mom was just able to work. And so my family has had to go through.
I hate to cut you off, but we got to take a quick break. We'll come right back. You can finish the thought. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I am Tammi Mack, and the business of being Black today is interracial marriages. DeJuan, you say if a Black person marries a white person that perhaps they can't be as, pro-Black. But on the same vein, if a white person marries a Black person, does that qualify them to be more of an ally?
No. That's one of the major issues that we've had as a people over the last 350 years in this country. We tend to see a white person that's around Black people and think, hey, they're friends of ours. Look, Thomas Jefferson had white children. I mean, George Washington had white children. I mean, so when it comes down to it,
you mean Black children?
I'm sorry, my bad. Black children, dyslexic, but we have a history in this nation of white and Black intermingling and being together. That's never not been a thing in this country, So what that does oftentimes is with Black people, we oftentimes see that as something that's a good thing, and that's something that gets us thrown off as a people in thinking that we may have an ally because someone is dating a Black person, when historically that's never been true. You know what I mean? Of course, there are exceptions to the rule, everything. Look, the last time we had a white ally on our team really like that was John Brown. That was in 1860. So just because you're married to someone doesn't mean anything. I've had my 3 times great granduncle was the first Black senator in Illinois state history. He was married to a white person. So it's one of those things where, but at the same time, legislatively, he didn't do much for us, but he did a lot for them. And that's kind of how it happens all the time. People run black, bliggity black, or I'm white. Look at that mayor of New York, the one that just left office with his Black wife. Oh, I have a Black wife. I must not be that bad. This new person over here in Mason, Tennessee, where Mason, Tennessee is being taken over right now because the Ford factory is coming. That particular person making that decision adopted a Black child. And so people oftentimes, white folks, we've seen historically, they use their relationship with Black people as a front to continue doing the same devious things they would have done had they not had those Black people in their relationships.
Hotel Priestess, but if a white person marries a Black person, right? They have to be more sensitive to the needs of Black people because they are witnessing it firsthand, even if it is in terms of their own experiences with racism in being a couple.
I would have to agree with Dewan. I don't think that's necessarily true. There have been multiple instances of people that I know who are biracial, and they have maybe a white parent, and their white parent has displayed some sort of disdain or racism towards even their own children for not being completely monoracially, whatever they are, white, whatever the race is, etc. So there is anti-Blackness regardless of well, there can be anti-Blackness regardless of who you're married to, because almost all the other races have anti-Blackness. A lot of these interracial relationships come with fetishization, and in that, like, that's not allyship. That's negative.
Are they just fetishes, Cheryl?
Well, I've only come across one couple where I could tell you that there was definitely some kind of fetishism going on. Otherwise, no. Most the couples that I've interviewed are in good, loving relationships. Let me give you another statistic. Black women married to white men at the 10-year mark are far more likely to still be married than white couples. Black men, unfortunately, married to white women at the 10-year mark are far less likely to be married. But all I'm saying is very simply, Black women who marry outside the race tend to do well and marry well and stay married.
So then, Hotep priestess, what is the issue with people procreating outside of their race to you?
I truly just value identities. I value differences. And with this projection that in so many years, we're all going to be so mixed race and curly hair and light skin, I would just honestly hate to live in that society. I don't want to live in a homogenous society. I don't want the melting pot to become fully homogenous, because once all the identities are flattened, then nobody has anything to identify as. Then culture will begin to lack. So that's my issue. That's my biggest fear when it comes to interracially procreating, is that there will be a lack of these identities that we have now later on down the road.
Paisley Page, you were interracially procreated.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a lack of identity with you?
I don't think so. I think it comes down to the person you are inside and the ideas that you want to share. So if you feel pulled or strongly about a certain ideal or culture, then you just need to share that with your kids so that you pass it down. A lot of times in America, people are taught to assimilate. So even having different languages, not teaching them to their kids, that washes that out. So if it's important to you to have, an identity in a specific culture and in your nationality, you just have to make sure to share it.
Cheryl, I just asked Cheryl if it was a fetish. Are Black people fetishes to white people in terms of wanting to be in a relationship with a Black person? But by the same token, I'd like to ask you, Paisley Page, do you think it's a fetish for Black men to want biracial sisters?
I think, once again, that comes down to the specific person. I'm sure there are people who do have fetishes and they do seek after that in the wrong motive. And then there's people who truly just have fallen in love with somebody who has a different skin color than they do. And it's about the person inside. I truly believe that, more than the skin color or the look or the ethnicity. It's about who you are.
Dewan, do Black people who date interracially feel like their relationships have a broad social meaning, as you alluded to earlier?
Unfortunately, yes. Too many do. I can't say all because I can't speak for everyone. But I have spoken with lots of people in relationships, and it seems as if, especially when on the side when it comes to Black men dating white women. I was talking to my cousin about this yesterday, who has a white wife, and it just seems as if, hey, there's no racism, or racism isn't as bad as you make it seem, or they minimize what a lot of people do who are in either interracial relationships or mixed. They trivialize racism down to social consequences. Look, if it was just social consequences, Black people wouldn't be having no issues. The issue with racism is the fight for resources. The fact that the darker you are, the less access to resources you have historically. And I'm not saying people who are mixed have like way more resources. The fact that you have a drop of black blood in you can take away resources. Hell, my family when they moved to Michigan, when they moved to Indiana out of Virginia in 1830, they were free, never enslaved. But when they moved to Indiana, they didn't qualify. As light-skinned as they were, they did not qualify for the Homestead Act, which gave you 160 acres of free land and more acres per child. They had to buy those 900 acres because they had those drops of black blood in them.
So what you're suggesting is going against your own thought process. Even you said your great-great-grandfather was married to a white woman, so you yourself ain't 100% black.
Nobody black in America is. We all have some mixture.
So then what are you actually saying here? None of us can be pro-black. Like, how do we believe in what you say if you too got white blood in you? I don't know if it's white blood.
Because one, we all have white blood in us. Two, it's a visual. It's a 6 block rule. If I can identify your race from 6 blocks away, you're going to have a different time.
I cannot identify you from 6 blocks away unless you got some color issues on your camera. You don't look black from 6 blocks away. You kind of fair skinned yourself.
That might be this light. I'm very dark. This light might be on me. For me, I'm 350 pounds. So trust me, you gonna see my big butt is black, and the police gonna know that from a long way away.
Okay.
I'm saying that people easily identifiable as black have far less access to resources than those who don't. And the higher up the color scale you have, you get more. But I'm not here to totally crap on the interracial people, because with them having that identifiable blackness in them,
let's take a quick break. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. Today, the business of being black is interracial marriages. Please welcome the author of Interracial Marriages Between Black Women and White Women. White Men. Cheryl Giudice, actress and artist. Paisley Paige Gibson, graphic designer and staff writer at the Kansas City Call. Aubrey Hughes, aka Hotep Priestess, and radio personality and relationship coach Dewan Brown is in the house. Interracial relationships. So we talked about Jordan Peele, but I want to mention people like Quincy Jones and people like Sydney Poitier, people who have done so many good things for the Black race that also were a part of interracial relationships or have had interracial relationships, known for their interracial relationships. And we're talking about people who have reached the pinnacle of their success, but have also helped the Black community in a huge way. So Hotep Priestess, how do we resolve that for some reason? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, you had cut out for a second. But I will say that, and oftentimes when it comes to people being interracially dating, these proximities to whiteness can get them into the door. However, I don't really know much about Sydney Poitier and Quincy Jones because I'm 24. But
no, that's not an excuse. Don't throw that in there. Do not throw that in there. All right. Do not. Do not play the age card, okay? I'm gonna need you to know more than Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion, okay?
But yeah, I had not heard of Sydney Poitier until last year. So there's that. Yeah, so there's that. But I do think that oftentimes those proximities to whiteness can help them be more palatable to other people outside of Black people. And in that, like, you know, they can push their stances further. They can go further, but I mean, that's only in hypotheticals. I would never discredit their work and say that, you know, they got there because they had a white partner. But I do think that can have a positive influence on Black activism.
Sure.
Well, it's really cute that Aubrey said she hadn't heard of Sydney Poitier. And the people that you just brought up, Sydney Poitier, Quincy Jones, Sammy Davis Jr., all these people are from a much earlier generation where when they became famous or as they became famous, their proximity to whiteness allowed them to feel more comfortable dating outside the race. Maybe it made them more acceptable. And it is important to note the generational issue because you are not going to find those same things in younger people. They don't think like that. They don't think that they've done anything big just because they've married outside the race. So it was kind of interesting to me, Tammi, that you kind of took some of the older generation and brought them forward, but their marriages and how they may have viewed marrying outside the race is vastly different from how younger people think.
It is interesting. So is it a generational thing? Paisley Page, do you think that the younger the generation, the more acceptable interracial marriages are?
That could be. Yeah,
I guess in other words, do you think it's getting better? I mean, I said at the top of the show, we're in 2022. Why are we having this discussion?
Yeah, I definitely do think it's getting better. I think it's more of a thing that's being seen. And to go back to when I started in the industry with acting modeling, I started at like 3. And so I was going on castings for families that were all Black or all white. And I would be like runner up because they didn't know where to put me. So that lasted so many years, like up until I was 18, basically. And now I'm 27. And it's finally starting to be like where I see little girls that look like me, have multiracial, backgrounds. And they're actually able to be in a family with maybe a Black mom or like a white dad. And it's cool to me to be able to see, because that wasn't a thing when I was growing up. It was different. Like people were like, well, what are you? Like, where could we put you? Like they didn't really believe that I could be, they didn't know what race I would be. So I think it is special that it's starting to turn. And I do think we're coming a far way. And I do think it's more, probably more accepted nowadays because people are starting to see like, oh wait, like, I guess a lot of people do this.
Okay. And as an actress, even though you're 27 years old, I'm gonna need you to know who Sydney Poitier is. Okay.
Okay. I'll do a deep Google search after this.
Please know who he is as an actor.
Okay.
Hotep Priestess, in the media, we're seeing many commercials, as Paisley Page led to, featuring interracial couples. So why do you think the media is promoting interracial dating more than Black love?
I mean, honestly, I couldn't tell you exactly why the media is promoting more interracial couples than Black love, but I will say I think that is an issue to me. I think when we're in a place where Black people are having to fight to be seen on TV, especially darker skinned Black people, I see that instead of placing darker skinned Black people in these roles, we get the interracial family, or we get the mixed family, or the interracial couple. And I don't want to see that replacement. I want to see both in tandem, but I see one being promoted over the other. I don't know why. I do think that white people may have an incentive to dating interracially because of the way that births and deaths are going, but I don't know why.
Listen, Cheryl, did I hear you laugh at that?
No, I was just listening to her speak. It's very interesting for me because I'm like probably 2 generations out from your thinking. But one of the things that I have noticed is that we do have more commercials where I've noticed that they have put more interracial couples. But if you look at that closely, it's primarily Black women with white men and the biracial child. So it still speaks to the racism in the country where we're still not comfortable having a Black man with a white woman and biracial children. I understand when one of the cereal companies did this, where they put a Black man as part with his white wife and child in a commercial, they got all kinds of hate mail. And then I have to counteract that with what I understand was the overwhelming success of a show called Bridgerton that I think streams on Netflix. And the number of people that watched that show simply because the Black male actor, and all of these are English actors, but he was Black. And of course, his love interest is a white woman. And, people after that, this was a Shonda Rhimes story. And yet when the first season ended, they've gotten all kinds of flack about how come this is not going to continue on. So I think what's going on is that Hollywood and everybody else is trying to figure their way out and very slowly push the needle. And again,
the question to the Bridgerton thing is it does have another season, so it is back, but would we have gotten the same, or would it have gotten the same traction and the same popularity were the main character not a light-skinned Black man? Or
I think just the fact that he was Black and she was white, I think it was the main thing that came across.
But we could barely tell, Cheryl. We could barely tell.
No.
So my question is, could we have?
It's not fair.
I think for sure people, just because he looked the way he did, yes, he was a good-looking guy, no matter what shade of skin he had.
But my question is if a Tyrese-looking man had taken on the role, would we feel the same way about the show?
Yes, we'd definitely be watching that show all the more. Now, there'd be a whole lot of people hating on that show, but I'm going to tell you right now.
Well, that's what I mean. So you do think that there would be a lot more hate involved if that lead actor were.
Yeah, but who's going to be doing the hating? It isn't going to be the white folks out there all necessarily hating. There's going to be plenty of Black women out there doing a whole lot of hating as well. So let's not get too into this, because you get a good-looking Black guy, no matter what his skin color is, the fact that he may be with a white woman is still something lots of people aren't ready for. And
I want to give the Black look on the movie. Going back to Jordan Peele, Get Out. That was a Black man and a white woman. And you just see Black. I want to give Black women credit. You just see a bunch of Black women hating on the movie Get Out. They talked about the story. You know what I mean? When it comes down to it, I think what we see overall is an erasure of the foundation of Black American men and women.
Let's take a quick break.
Man and woman who's
Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. Today, the business of being Black is interracial relationships. And can you be pro-Black if you're involved in an interracial relationship? We were talking about the popularity of the Shonda Rhimes show Bridgerton and how that Black man and the white woman had a relationship on the show, and it was still popular. I suggested that if that Black man were the same hue as Tyrese, perhaps the show wouldn't be as popular. And Cheryl suggested that it would be, but if it were not, it would be because Black women, we would have a problem with it. But then DeJuan comes to our rescue. I love it when our Black brothers give our Black sisters some props. So please give us our props, DeJuan.
I think what we see here, I think Black women are being unfairly marginalized when it comes to this, because what you see is the Black woman's she is responding to her erasure. She sees herself being erased from this country. She sees her sons, her husbands, her fathers, her daughters, and she sees this overall erasure of the Black image, the people who built this country being erased off of media. And when she gets mad, she's responding to the injustice. Look, if you look up the original emblem of America, you have a Black woman on that picture. The Statue of Liberty, these are the women who are the mothers of this nation. So to marginalize them for having a negative or an angry reaction at what we all see, I think is a little bit unfair. We have to understand this in context, and what we see is the erasure and Black women responding to that.
But Cheryl, you are a Black woman, right?
Yes, as long as I've been alive.
So do you believe there's an erasure issue here when it comes to interracial relationships?
No, I don't. I believe that when people are getting married, they're not marrying a race, they are marrying a person. And I don't think, again, as I said earlier, I don't feel that anybody in the couple feels diminished in any way. These are just two people that met and fell in love. And again, and I'm happy that that's what I have been able to find. Now, I will allow that in earlier generations, there may have been some ulterior type motives, but I have not found that among younger couples at all.
Yeah. I was watching a documentary on Lucy and what Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz had to go through, because Desi Arnaz was, of, I think, Colombian descent. and and then it made me think of the Jeffersons, because I'm in love with my old shows, and how the Jeffersons' neighbors were kind of the first interracial couple on a primetime television show, in terms of black and white, and then the things that they had to go through. But a Hotep priestess, do you believe that if the lead actor of Bridgerton were a darker color, like Tyrese-esque, it would be as popular and it would have a second season?
I've never seen Bridgerton also, I'm sorry. But do I think that if he was
because there's this black man who is in a relationship with a white woman.
I probably don't think that it would be as popular. And I do agree with Cheryl that, you know, some black women probably would take issue with that, but I definitely think that some white people will also take issue with that. So I do think it would be a 50-50 negative response from both demographics.
So tell us about Hugh's Apparel.
Well, I just have this t-shirt line where I make kind of, I design everything that is on my apparel. I go from like this pro-black standpoint. And so, yeah, I love colors. That's why it's called Hugh's. My last name is Hughes. Yeah, so.
Cheryl, what can you tell us about your book, Interracial Marriages Between Black Women and White Men?
Well, I have two books out. The interracial marriages between Black women and white men. That was where I interviewed 50 couples. 30 were Black women married to white men. 20 were Black men married to white women. That book is sold as an academic text. The one that you just highlighted was my recent book, Interracial Relationships Between Black Women and White Men. And in that book, I interviewed Black women who are dating, married to, or divorced from white men. I also interviewed white men by themselves as to what it is they found attractive and interesting about Black women and why they preferred to date Black women. And again, for that book, I think I zeroed in on maybe about 60 couples, but I looked at Black women all across the age line and all across the generations. Yeah.
Paisley, the Funky Vatican, and your new single, your first single, Sun Bleeds.
Yes. So a little bit about that is my first single called Sun Bleeds, like Tammi said, Sun Bleeds. And it's just a little bit about having the light reveal to you who the person truly is that you're close to, and then getting your summer back and not letting it keep you down. But the Funky Vatican is a family group. All 5 of us in my family, we all sing and songwrite together. So it's a collaborative, and there'll be more coming out.
Dewan, what can you tell us about Incense and Ashtrays and Breakthrough Advocacy Services?
Breakthrough Advocacy Services is where I do my relationship coaching. I have 20 plus years working with families, working with children, whether it be parent-child dynamic or marriage dynamic. And I help solve communication issues and help them get through whatever's they're going through so they can have a successful, non-confrontational, using their words type of relationship versus anything negative or harming. And Incense and Ashtrays is my music show. I really dig deep into music history, past and present. I talk about how music has devolved from the 70s in great detail. And I have a music family tree coming out showing all of the things, all of the genres of music that the Black American has created worldwide, starting at Appalachian all the way through Zydeco, starting in 1609 through right now. So giving credit to the people who originated all of the sounds that we have, and the names, dates, songs, everything, a very comprehensive list of all of the different genres of music that we as Black Americans created right here in North America.
Wow.
That's so cool.
In one word, I want to ask each of you, why or how, one word, I know this is a tough one, I'll give you time to think, one word, how can we blend America successfully? How can we blend America successfully? Hotep Priestess, I'll start with you.
My one word would be don't.
Ooh, ouch. Cheryl, what you got for us?
Love. love.
Dewan, I'm coming to you, brother. How can we
Impossible.
blend America successfully? One word, what you got for me?
Impossible.
Well, there's just no hope here. Don't impossible.
Well, when you have gumbo, the shrimp don't blend with the crawfish.
Yeah, but they all taste good. They all taste good. It makes
I'll
for
give
a
you that.
tasty little meal.
Yes.
Paisley Page. In
That
one
comes
word.
comes to my word, the gumbo conversation.
So it's nice to know that we've started to blend on the business of being Black. We have started it. We have started it. I tried to go out with a white boy, making my boyfriend when I was in elementary school. I remember his name to this day. It was Heath. And we were playing Super Friends. And I was Wonder Woman and he was Superman. Everybody was playing Super Friends. And I flew up to him and I was like, shh, Superman, will you be my boyfriend? And he was like, no. Shh. And then he flew away. And I was embarrassed the rest of the school year as a little kindergartner. So that has kept me away from white men, unfortunately. TG is up next. That is the business of being Black with Tammi Mack on Foxsoul. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.